Welcome to the HVAC Jerks with your hosts, Rich, Kevin, and Joe. You can email these guys at theboys@thehvacjerks.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the HVAC Jerks. My name is Rich, as always, and I'm here with Kevin and Anonymous Joe.
Hello. Wait, can I interrupt you?
Already?
Yeah. You say, hi, this is Rich, as always. What does that mean? That
I'm always Rich.
Oh, but could you be typically somebody else during the day?
I can't. No, I'm the same person all the time.
He's not anonymous.
You seem to get a different name.
Well, I get a different name. Why shouldn't you?
You know what your name is this week,
What is
Mr.
it?
Anonymous Joe?
What is it?
This week you're going to be called 12-cylinder Enzo.
Okay. That one I can work with because it has a little Ferrari connotation in there.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm good with
on
that.
your desk, don't you?
All right, that's cool.
12-cylinder Enzo.
Very good. All
Just
right.
to keep you safe. Because we know what kind of trouble you get into all the time. This will...
Rich's prospective son-in-law is in the studio today, so he's on his good behavior.
Yeah. That's all right.
Pops. So we call him.
Yeah, he did call him Pops.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Feeling old there.
Yeah.
This is just
They just set a date for that
ammunition, bro. This is all good stuff. Keep it coming.
Mm-hmm.
He's in here taking pictures, or he's going to bribe you probably. That's it.
It's all blackmail.
No, I got the mask. You don't even know.
He's wearing shorts.
I got shorts on.
He's showing us some sexy legs.
Is it true that you got recognized again for the third time?
Did.
That's unbelievable.
And the experience was incredible because I happened to be riding with this gentleman in the car. And
I think he's just paying people.
No.
I think he hangs out at the rest stops that you hang out in.
Actually, it wasn't like it wasn't like he recognized my voice. We were doing a training, and we stopped to get lunch. And I rode with him in his car, and we're driving down the road, and he's listening to this channel on satellite. And I says, this is what you listen to all the time? He goes, well, I got a long commute, so I listen to this. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I said, oh, that's funny. I do one too. And he goes, which one? And I told him, the name, The Jerks. And he almost hit a tree. He was so, oh my God, I listened to you, look. And he showed me his phone, and he was like, holy cow, this is great. He goes, I'm going to give you a business card. I want you to take to Kevin and have him sign it for me.
You have it with you?
No. We'll get him one on the rebound. But it was funny because he was very excited. He was like, I feel like I'm a celebrity because that's the way he made me feel. He was so excited.
We know
to
you're
meet
not
me.
a celebrity, but
I'm like, you see this all these years on the cover, and here you are. You're with the real thing.
Yeah.
And he was so excited. He goes,
different than paparazzi.
get us his address, and we'll send him.
Yeah, all right, we'll do that. We'll do that. But it was a lot of fun. It was just
That's unbelievable.
We
Third
both
time.
couldn't stop laughing in the car. We left all the way to the restaurant. It was hysterical.
I don't get recognized.
So when you got to the restaurant, did you cook?
No. They wouldn't let me.
No.
He was wearing his clogs.
Actually, don't laugh. I was going to wear my pepperoncini Crocs today to come here. The most comfortable things I've ever owned.
Peppercini Crocs?
Yeah, they have little peppers on them.
Oh, that's
red.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so fitting for you.
It was.
Between the pickle hat and peppercini
We got to get
shoes.
pictures of that on the website.
All right, Mr. Artichoke.
Boy,
King
are
from
we
last week.
straying from the fray here. Let's continue.
I'm
sorry, Rich. Continue with your monologue. As always, you're Rich.
As always.
I still am.
Okay.
And I'm still
you're
here.
Mr. 12-cylinder Enzo today.
12-cylinder Enzo.
All right. So, yeah, I thought you'd like that one. So, all right. Anyway, this week we're going to talk about experience versus school and what's more important, if either one is more important, and what would you prefer as an employer in hiring a new guy, a guy who just comes out of school or a guy who's got some experience. So we want to talk about the pros and cons of each of them. So I think there's a lot to say on this subject.
Yeah, this is going to go deep.
We can go all over the place.
It's going to get real.
There's a lot of trade schools out there. I was just in one a couple of weeks ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, actually, I went there to do a job fair thing they had going on.
Did you learn anything?
Did I what?
Did you learn anything?
I didn't. Well, actually, I did learn a few things. There was They had like an advisory board that they invited us on to beforehand. Mm-hmm. So we went on to that, and it was okay. But they wanted to get some input from contractors out in the field and what we wanted to see. And I tried to impress upon them that these kids coming out of school have no idea of what reality is when they come out of school. For example, if they learn to work on a gas furnace in the classroom and they learn a gas valve and a blower motor and all kinds of stuff and they learn how to troubleshoot that, but that's in the classroom, and you take that furnace and put it in a crawl space and turn it horizontal left, and it's like they're on another planet now. They don't know what to do. They don't understand what happened.
Throw a couple
So do you
spider
feel
webs in
that's
the
a problem with the
crawl space.
curriculum, or do you feel that the instructor's not exactly telling them, look, this is not real life. This is in order to get a baseline, this is what we're teaching you, but when you're going into the field, you're going to find all kinds of situations and applications.
You're probably going to get that depending on the instructor
Right,
itself.
right.
Individually, if you have somebody with like real world experience, or you just have somebody that's book smart. So we know there's variables to the instructor. But as far as the schools are concerned, this is my experience with the schools for the most part. They go and ask for this information from business owners and field people and say, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to get better at? What do you want? And then that only goes as far as the curriculum of that state. So to be accredited, you're only going to get government money and government funding and school financing and all that if you follow this protocol. And that's it. There's no deviating from the government money. So these
That's a big part of it. I think you're right.
It's a major part of it because the schools rely on that money. These kids can't afford. Most of these kids that are coming in the trades, this isn't college.
It's grant money, right?
It's grant money. It's school loans, whatever it may be, and it might only be $20,000, but to them it's a lot of money because these kids. I'm saying, and this is not for all. Some people aspire to be in this industry, and this is the path they go. But like in Apex Tech or something like that, I mean, they've been over TV since I was 10 years old.
Sure.
You know what I mean? These guys have been around forever.
The guy with the bald head and the mustache.
And it started with auto mechanics, and now auto mechanics is to the point where there's out of control, but now it's HVAC or whatever, so these guys will go where the money's at, and unfortunately that's where they're driven because they have a business to run, and they've built their business around a certain amount of money and paying teachers. So the teachers, I'm sure, again, there's variables to that. So they are they're going to be limited to what they want to teach and what they're allowed to teach.
Well, I'll give you a funny experience. When I took my tech school, the guy, we all signed up for the class, the instructor quit the night the class started.
Because of you?
So they brought in another guy.
With you wearing those peppercini shoes.
So they brought in another guy, and at that point we had no books, no manuals, no nothing. And the instructor says,
"Oh, come on, surely they had books back then."
No, nothing.
You had
this wasn't that far.
Old?
This wasn't that far back. So,
it's like 2 weeks ago.
The instructor says, "All right, what do you guys want to know?" I'm like, "Excuse me."
Well,
really?
Yeah, that's what
he really said.
Well, they told me to teach you whatever you guys want to know. I'm like, well, we don't know anything. That's what.
So this is the problem again. Like
that's ridiculous.
Years ago,
Is your mother calling?
No,
that's your mom.
sorry, that should be on.
So a few years. This is many moons ago, and when I was still young in the business, but I was really grasped oil burners.
Yeah,
and
that's where you grew up. That's what you grew up.
That's
with, right?
that's
what
my
your dad did.
Yes. So he didn't teach me as much as I learned just from experience because whatever. So that's another podcast. But I was given an opportunity to teach at BOCES at a very young age.
Okay.
And I say young in the field, less than 30. So I was probably like 26, 27.
Yeah.
To me, you okay?
I'm listening.
Stay awake.
No,
man.
I'm listening.
Yawning. It's not even that late.
Like watching grass grow, boys.
So they were offering me $20 an hour to come in 4 hours a night for 3 nights a week to come in and teach people, homeowners, whoever wanted to go to the BOCES to do in BOCES.
And all you need is a universal license, right?
I didn't need anything. They were like, you got experience? Like, and I was like, well, yeah, this is what I do every day. And they're like, oh, great, come on in. You can teach the class.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of criteria.
Do I get like a book? Like, and they were like, no, just do whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, so that kind of put a bad taste right off in the beginning. So I stayed away I go towards the experience side of things, but as I've grown and become fatter, I've learned that there's different people that do better in certain situations. So some people are meant for school, some people are meant for experience.
I could tell you, we were at an event last week, and you guys were actually there as well.
Jerks in the house.
And some of the people who came to this were the Boy Scouts of America and some guys from local trade school. And I got to tell you, one of the young men came up to me and said, what do you guys do? And we were talking about my colleague and I, what we did, and we explained to him that we represent manufacturing and this is what we do, and we explain our jobs. So he goes, well, will they hire me to install boilers? I'm like, well, no, we don't do that. We. Right. And again, I went through
and explain that you're not a contractor.
Right. I said we deal with distributors, and we sell products, we train people,
wholesale.
So the guy was like, "Oh, great," and he, it was like he was really into it. I was really trying to. I said, "Stick with it. There's a lot of potential in this business. I'm happy for you that you're in this trade." And after I gave him this wonderful dissertation, and my colleague says, "Man, you made it sound so good that I want to go back to school." Okay. The kid says to me, he goes, "All right, so when I graduate, I could take your card and you guys will hire me to put in boilers?" Yeah, I'm like, we're in trouble. Yeah, we're in trouble because I'm like, so they're
I'm
not.
Surprised he didn't recognize you.
Well, the irony was it's just like I keep saying I'm like that's what the mentality is out there. They can't process a thought. It's a little frightening that they're is it like high school where they just push people through the cracks just to get them through the curriculum?
No, they educate every kid that goes through the program.
Well, that's what I'm fearful of because
they're not all like that.
We just got done talking about the state curriculum for HVAC education.
I get it, but most people
guess what the high school education not too far behind.
I understand, and it's I'm not trying to be cynical, but
you're pretty good at that.
I know, but they should put a little bit more emphasis on trying to train these kids to come up the right way. At least just get them the basics because they're not going to get the experience in school.
Take it down to 6 cylinders. All right?
Sorry.
So
see what I have to put up here?
When you go through high school, there's no reality in high school.
Oh, I get that.
There's no reality in high school, and there's still no reality in college.
It says that right on the paper here.
Right. Well, that's the absolute truth. Well, there's no they don't teach you how to balance your checkbook.
No, there's nothing.
I literally had to explain to 2 of my guys that are 20 and 21 how to fill out an envelope.
I even asked you about this the other week.
You mean to write a letter?
How to? Not to write the letter. I don't want to blow their minds.
No, I mean to address an envelope.
To address an envelope. Who to put where to go, where does the name go, where does the address go, where does the city go, the state, the zip. Blew their mind.
That's insane.
Yeah. They graduated 3 years ago. Could not fill out an envelope.
I'm going to
receive mail, don't they? To get stuff in the mail.
Yes, you got to look at the envelope, right?
Well, but the thought process doesn't go any further than, I got mail.
Okay, so now I'm going to blow your mind because I'm going to speak exactly to your point. When I came across on the Mayflower, yes, right. I knew you were going to say that.
When I found America.
Back in 1968, and I was 5 years old when I started kindergarten, and I went through first grade, and I was having trouble learning English because it wasn't my native language. And
you came over on the short boat,
and the guidance. I remember this. The irony is, here I am, in my middle 50s, and I remember this like it was yesterday. The guidance counselor says to me, he goes, "Don't worry about learning English. We're going to pass you because this isn't your first language." I'm like, instead of the guy saying to me, "This is difficult, but if you stick with it, you're going to..." And I've had trouble with English ever since because I had the mentality, I don't have to do it because it's not my first language. Even though I actually learned my vocabulary in my late 30s. Right. Late 20s, I should say, during the Iran-Contra hearings.
You serious?
With Oliver North.
Ollie North. But
because...
You were there? Yeah.
No, I listened to the entire... Yes, I was, actually. I was under Reagan. And listening to the entire thing, the entire hearing process, I would listen to these guys make these long speeches without hesitation to find words, where I'm still used to doing the and exactly.
If I were,
I could never do this. What we're doing today. 30 years ago. There's no way. I wouldn't be able to formulate a sentence or a thought.
Let's bring it back to the topic, which is experience versus school in our industry. So I don't want to. I mean, we can. So before you know it,
this is all part of it.
It is related because Kevin's point is: are these guys really being taught, and does experience in real life make them more valuable than the actual schooling does?
So any state, for the most part, government involvement, which is behind all of these schools, right? Unless they're privately owned and privately funded, which we don't have any around here that I know of. They're all looking for government money.
They're all taking government money.
Okay, so the government is controlling what they're going to put out as a curriculum, which is written by somebody who probably doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. So it's all based on a lot of theory, which is great. So
Well, theory's important too.
Theory, no, don't get me wrong. Like I said, for the right person or in small increments, theory can be great to get you where you need to be. I am a true believer in touching it, breaking it, fixing it, having a bad day, fixing it again, like, you're just getting your hands on it, taking it apart and saying, oh, these bolts go back into that. And these, it's like working on a car for the first time. You take your brakes apart, you figure it out, it's not.
Absolutely.
You have to do it to experience it.
Last week, I taught a class to some of the apprentices, the helpers in my company. And it was, 4 or 5 sitting there after work one night. And these are guys that have been there for, a year or two. And they've been in, helpers bringing stuff up in the attic or putting ductwork together and all that. And my class was based on very simple, CFM, where it comes from, why we use it, what it means, and how it relates to sizing ductwork and all that. And I don't think any of them had ever seen anything like that before. They had no idea what 400 CFM was.
And to your point, because I taught a class last week, and now through my experience of teaching classes and seminars, my first questions immediately, I stopped. I stopped doing what I would normally do because I realized that not everybody in the room was at the same speed, right? So what the first things I do is, after I introduce myself, I'm like, I need a show of hands of who's familiar with this process. I need a show of hands who's weak in this process. Don't be bashful. This is why I'm here. I'm going to walk you through it little by little. By the time you leave here, you'll understand.
Most guys aren't willing to say that, though. They don't want to raise their hand and say they don't know.
I actually address that. I actually address, look, don't be worried about what the guy next to you thinks of you, because if you leave here not knowing and making the mistake, he's going to think less of you when you leave here. So I've experienced this. I know what it's like not to know something and not raise my hand because I didn't want to feel like a jerk in the room. You're not saving anybody. You're not. It serves no one any good purpose.
Right.
So ask the questions, and sure enough, a guy went up and says, I really am not familiar with primary piping, primary, secondary piping. I said, excellent. That's where we'll start. And that's how I started the class. And, it went a little askewed, but then I showed him diagrams. I showed him what the principles were. I showed him schematics. And I said, did I answer your question? He goes, yes. Now I understand.
I think not just putting the pipes together and saying this is a primary loop, this is how you do it.
Right.
If you understand why you need to do that and what the purpose of it is, it'll help you understand, it'll help you remember putting it together. This makes sense. Now I put the T here instead of over there, or this is why I need to keep them close.
Well, it goes to speak what Kevin's saying. Again, I think that the instructors are paying to show them the piece of paper that they're supposed to, because the government says this is a curriculum, or the county or the school system, or whoever sets the precedent to be able to say this is what you're teaching here. We don't want you to stray. You're going to get a check every week. Whether these guys learn or not, it's not our responsibility. You're pushing them through. You're getting what you need to get out of them. But there are some guys out there who are willing to do the extra work to teach these kids to do something. And as a kid, if you're missing something, or as a young man or young woman in these classes, I implore you, if you don't understand, tell them to stop and explain it to you.
Make them work for your money. Yeah. You're paying them. Get your money's worth.
Yeah. Make sure when you leave,
and if they don't know the
when
answer,
you went in there.
If they don't know the answer, you're in the wrong school.
Right.
Yeah. Just real quick, the school that I was talking about that I was in a couple of weeks ago just reduced the curriculum from 1,500 hours to 1,200 hours. So they just knocked 300 hours out there.
Right, because they don't want to pay the teachers.
Yeah.
Right, saving money.
So anyway, let me ask you this. What are some of the things that school won't prepare you for?
Reality.
Okay.
Just, we've talked about this amongst ourselves, but
this comes up all the time.
One of the sitting in a classroom is awesome, and you get the theories. And there's we went to a school up in upstate New York, and the guy had like awesome wiring boards that he had built, and you've just talked about these recently somewhere else. You saw them. What a great experience to sit there and do it physically. But
find the short.
But like you just said before, you put that into a boiler room, 3 o'clock in the morning. With a pissed off wife.
It's easy to see on the whiteboard, right? When it's all.
There's a different. It's a different perspective, and they don't teach you perspective. They teach you the theory, and like this is it right in front of you in a clean, perfect atmosphere, in a factory-like atmosphere where everything is in. And I'm not going to say everything is working in a perfect condition, but they're putting it in a condition where they can control it. Rich just fell out of his chair.
It's a clinical environment, right?
It's a clinical environment. That's a good way to put it. So
yeah, it's a clinical environment. It's sterile. They have a plus and a minus. They have a known and an unknown. Everything is laid out for them. This is the right way. This is the wrong way.
They'll rig equipment to break to kind of test your skills a little bit.
But when the relay is not in the gray box, or it's in the green box or whatever.
Or if all the wires inside the box are red and no colors, what do I do now, you know?
Right. So again, back to the variables of the teachers, right? We have different ages of the teachers coming from different generations, right? And most of the teachers, right, are who? They're older generation, right? Which come from the generation of... Right? So we've talked about this. Like, oh, well, you don't really need to know about that. Right. Or they're one-dimensional. They got a tunnel vision. Yeah. They come in and like, well, I'm the oil burner class guy. Right. Like, this is all you need to know. Like, well, what happens when there's 240 put into a 120 control? Well, that's not what we're here for. Right. We're just here to work on the burner. Like, that's what we do.
And here's the other important thing for teachers. As I do these things, and as you're teaching your guys, if the person or people that you're showing and teaching these things to give you any kind of reaction, like they're really interested, it energizes you because they're getting something out of it. So I implore all you students out there to participate because the more you participate, the more you get involved, the more your teacher will be willing to teach you because he's going to see that he's got somebody interested and wants to learn. He's going to take the time to show you. Because I get
nodding off.
Yeah, I get pumped up when guys are asking me questions or they're participating.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I had a class. I got to say that the AM class was phenomenal. Even one of the guys who were with me said, "Yeah, these guys were all about it. They came out, did their things. We showed them some live fire stuff." And then the second part of the day was the next part. They were tired. They were coming from the field. I understand they all want to go home. It's late in the afternoon. They just had lunch. Nobody wants to sit down for a 4-hour lesson. But a lot of these things that they're facing in the street today was covered in those classes where they might not have paid attention to.
So now what about obstacles in the field? Like
obstacles in the field are owners. Owners, because I can tell you that I get phone calls saying that we judge our companies based on how good the tech support is, on who we buy from. I'm like, well, what does that mean? That you want us to fix the problem in the field for you? So you're not. My objective is to teach your men so that they don't have to call tech support.
Your perspective from where you stand in the world is owners are your biggest obstacle.
Sometimes, yes, because they're not willing to let their people go.
I don't think the question was for you. I think the question was for people in the industry moving education. So, obstacles are
like you're an anomaly. You want your people to learn. You want to put them in school. You pay for them to take these things, knowing full well that they may leave you and go work somewhere else after you've paid.
Well, I'm talking about versus school. What obstacles are out there that the schools aren't teaching them to overcome or how to overcome? In other words, the student goes out after going through the course and he gets out there and he sees
the things that
this problem that
they're not
he never saw before.
One of those things is actually having to have a conversation with Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's pregnant with 3 kids and 2 dogs that are trying to bite your ankle.
She's not happy because she doesn't
and her husband's not home, and you got bad news.
Exactly.
Right. So that's a situation that they're not teaching that. All right.
And that's a big part of what you do.
That's 100% part of what you do. Is your customer relations, right? So there's no public speaking courses in any HVAC program. You go to any service school anywhere in this country. Are they teaching customer service?
No.
Are they teaching you how to talk in front of a group?
And what words think about all the steps of what you have to talk to the person about. You have to first make them comfortable with you working in their home because you're kind of an invasion, even though they invited you in. They don't know you.
They work on presentation. Does the teacher of the HVAC school or the school itself say you're going to come to school dressed like this every day because that's what you're going to do in the real world?
You have you have to understand that the 25-year-old kid with all the tattoos and the earrings and piercings is coming to my mother's house who's going to be scared to death of him.
Yeah, I got to give you
that's the truth.
I have to give you credit. You have a bunch of lists on this topic. You have a bunch of detailed numbers, and you actually do have how to deal with customers, explaining, selling, collecting warranties, etc. Out of all the things here, that's the only thing you have on customer relations. So imagine a school. I mean, you have the foresight and the hindsight to know that that's a very big, important part of the job, where you don't see any of it in a curriculum.
Absolutely
anywhere.
not. There's nothing in a curriculum.
There's no business side. It's all technical.
It's all technical, and that's all they're being paid to teach.
Right.
So that's the problem I have. This, me personally, like I have a guy that went to 2 years of technical school, 2 years, and he's in the last 16 months. And I'm watching him go nowhere. Like, he can't use
anything
gauges.
He's learned.
He can't use gauges on HVAC. Like, you put it was like, here's an air conditioner, go suck it down, or go, put a pressure test, or pump it down and get reclaim the refrigerant. And he's just looking at me like, which one's the high side, which one's the low side, like. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, dude, you've been doing this for almost 2 years. I'm letting you leave work early to go to school at night, like, And he goes, well, I don't remember. And I said, okay.
That might be a different situation.
Whatever. So the next day I said, I was thinking about that night. So the next day when he came back in, he left to go to school that night. And after that day, comes in the next morning. I'm like, I said, hey, man, what are you working on in school? Like, what are you doing in class right now that's so, like, got your mind
right
processing something deeper that you don't know how to use gauges? I get you're new, but we're talking a year and a half, man. You've been paying for the school, and 90% of what you're doing has to do with refrigerant and gauges, and you don't know how to put them on. What are you doing? He goes, well, last night we were working on commercial compressors. And I'm like, doing what? And he goes, taking them apart and changing the oils. And I said, and you work for a residential HVAC company, and you're working on rebuilding commercial compressors, and you don't know how to use gauges, and they got you rebuilding commercial. Like, it's just a complete waste of time.
You shouldn't have to have 5 years in the business before you can go to a class like that.
I think we said this the other day. I would love to see the schools have, like, the first part of their curriculum actually be like a testing mode to see where you belong in the industry.
Yeah, like you do a pre-entry exam, like colleges
not even an exam, but maybe like the first 3 or 4 classes or semesters or whatever it is. They kind of determine
a service guy.
They can determine whether or not you got the goods to be a service guy, or whether or not you got the goods to be
and they are very different
to be an install guy. With different personalities, different abilities. I mean, I know guys that dropped out. I got buddies of mine that dropped out of high school. These guys couldn't spell their name, barely could read, right? They're making $125,000 a year changing oil on cars, man, working for dealerships and kicking ass, right? Doing great for themselves. And then I got guys that went to school that, they were super smart. They couldn't tie their own shoes. Right? So there's a place for them in the industry, no matter what. If you're mechanically inclined and you get it mentally, you're the guy that needs to go out and get experience. Right. If you're the guy that can read a book in 30 seconds and you could process that, but you don't have the ability to take it from your brain to your hand, but you might have the ability to explain it, maybe have good customer relations, there's a place for you in HVAC. Sure. So don't get deterred because you don't have the physical attributes.
There's a place for everybody,
to get you. There is a place for you in the industry.
Let's invest in the other side of this, experience side of it. What you do learn on a day-to-day, you cannot be taught in school.
Absolutely not.
What the mistakes you make in the field day-to-day,
priceless.
You cannot learn in school. How you learn shortcuts in the field, you cannot learn in school. How you come across certain things that familiarize you with the last thing you did, you can't learn in school.
You can look
priceless.
at the other. I agree with you 100%.
Right.
And I think there's things you can switch that around, turn it around backwards, and say that there are lots of things
you're going to get in school that you're not going to get in the field.
Yeah, you can't. There's things that you are not going to learn in the field that guys just still won't teach you.
What, ohm theory?
Well, yeah.
He's absolutely right there. But the difference is do I need that to be successful in HVAC, or do I need experience?
Look, if you're an engineer, if you're an electrical engineer,
what's more practical?
If you're a doctor, you got to know. If you're a doctor, you need to know.
We are doctors.
But I'm saying,
we're not just working on.
If you're a surgeon, you need to know where you're supposed to cut. You need to know what layer you're supposed to get to. You need to know what the spaghetti inside means what. All right, but everything else in life, and as you see in colleges today, everything is online. You could get a degree without going to college. You learn everything online. I mean, everything is available.
It's about education. It's not about experience.
I think that experience speaks
volume.
I mean, personally, I would take somebody with a buttload of experience.
I would too. But I think that only gets you to a certain level, and most of the time, that's enough to get you into your own business and make plenty of money and have a nice, happy life. But if you want to, as time goes on, we're getting more and more technical in the world anyway. I mean, we're all going to be sitting here with laptops or hooking up things to our phone when we go to a job site.
We already do that,
bro.
Right.
Exactly. We're doing that now. We're seeing it. So it's going to be more than taping a piece of ductwork together and bending and learning how to use the Zoom lock.
He sits home and does his monologues.
Everybody else working from a laptop
so I don't know what you're saying over there.
He hasn't been out
working remotely, and you're trying to figure out, can I get a pickle hat on Amazon?
What color can I get it in?
No, I think there's value in both. I think there's value in school, but you have to take it with a grain of salt that you just got to learn the basics, get an understanding of what you're doing, and then everything is going to come to you in the field. You're going to run into every scenario possible in the field.
Especially moving forward with the industry going through the evolution of what it's going through right now.
Here's where we tie both in. You're 100%. Yeah, here's where we tie both in. Once you get in the field and you learn the experience, there's so many schools after that
there's constant training.
They're dedicated to the field you're in, to that particular product you're using, or to similar products that you're using, that there's always increasing education going on. And then once you're in the field, you completely understand what you're walking into.
In the last 6 months, how many classes have you been to? I bet you've been to 5 or 6 at least.
At least minimum. For me personally, at least 6. I own the company.
It's constant.
I take my guys all the time.
It's constant.
I'm fighting to get more. I'm always looking for more.
You lose your place in line if you don't take these classes. That's just the way it is.
But moving forward with the industry changing, these young guys that are coming into it are going to need both. Like you were saying, we're getting so technical now, and it's not just knowing Ohm's theory. It's how to connect the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but
right? How many people don't know how to do that? Right?
Kevin, you're going to need a coach. Disagree with me if you like, but doesn't most of that now come from the field?
It's all in the field.
Yeah,
no one's teaching that.
No one's teaching that in school or a trade school.
But this is where it's going. The education side and knowing Ohm's law and all the theories and
that's what I'm saying. Get a basic level of where you need to be, and then everything else will come out in the street.
I'm going to bring this back. Well, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to follow it up with the young guys that are in school. Finishing and getting through your school, which is awesome. It's a great achievement and continue to do it. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Just know that when you come out, you're still at ground zero.
Yes.
You have a lot of theory, a lot of formula, a lot of, factory, what did you call it? A sterile.
Yeah, clinical
environment and education. And I'm not saying your instructor was a bad guy or a bad girl or whatever, but you're getting it in a very controlled environment.
Vacuum. The whole thing is in a vacuum.
In a perfect world, blah, 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 right? So take it with a grain of salt. You do know your theories, but you will still have to work in the field probably quicker. Most people with zero experience, I say, are on a 5-year process for them to get to the point where I can give them the keys. Here's 5 calls. See you later.
But that's okay. That's an apprenticeship process,
That's an apprenticeship program. Someone who's gone to school, I would say, is 2 to 3 years. They should be able to go a lot quicker than the guy that doesn't have any experience. So you're going to move faster. So having that background is great, but just know that when you're coming in, you're still starting at zero.
And it's going to be based on
your field experience.
Yeah, but it's also going to be based on your ability, and from experience that you have people that are been in school, and then you got people who started with you, never have been in the field.
Just had experience. Right?
And they're better than the guy who came out of school.
I think a lot of times
it's an individual thing.
Most definitely. And that's why just teaching one curriculum in one way is this is what drives me crazy, is the fact that these schools are just, whatever New York State says, whatever Colorado says.
I think it's a little deceiving for people going into the school because they think they're going to come out and know everything, and that's not true.
They're getting a fraction of what they need to know.
They're not getting
Ladies and gentlemen, Anonymous Joe and Kevin Beetlejuice have agreed for the entire
high five
podcast, News and Film at 11.
I want to say one other thing though about the
that was not an Anonymous show.
Technical
12-cylinder Enzo.
12-cylinder Enzo.
For our friends out there who are plumbers and electricians. They need to know the codes, and a lot of times you're not going to pick that stuff up in the field, and it really helps to take some classes on knowing what the International Plumbing Code is and all that. So and fuel gas code,
It's great to look at a picture and say, well, code applies in this black and white picture that we gave you with, no scenarios.
But you need to know how to size it.
Again, all that's in a vacuum. Everything that's taught in a class is in a vacuum.
Yeah, but you need to know what size vent goes on, how many fixtures, if you're putting 4 fixtures as opposed to 9
plumbing.
fixtures.
Well, that's why, and with all due respect, because plumbers and electricians have a very long, I want to use the word gestation period in apprenticeship programs. Right. You can't go for your plumber's license until you have 10 years in this particular state.
You are, but in
this state, it's 10 years of documented time as an apprentice before you can even apply for a test.
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you, and I'm not knocking electricians, but I'm just going to throw this out there, and I know I'm going to get shit for this, but electricians will see if you're wiring houses after the 5th house, is it any different?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So I don't care.
Construction,
and you can change the brand box that you're putting in the wall.
Yeah.
You can change the brand wire that you're using. You can change the brand box that you're putting in, the main panel or the breakers, or, so you can vary between what light fixture you might be hanging up. But when it comes to changing a furnace, you're completely different. That might have a 50-foot run for venting on 3-inch.
Oh,
this one could have 100.
It's a completely different animal.
Yes. It's a completely different. So when we talk about trades,
but even electrical stuff, they all base their stuff on run.
But it's all science.
Yes,
and once you knock down Ohm's law, and you get, your voltage drops over a distance of, so your wires are THHNs and
your gauges
solids
and stuff. Yes.
So once you master that, and you can do that in 5 years, no doubt, as an electrician. Some states are different. Like you're saying 10 years. But HVAC, there's so many things to our industry. Not just electric.
It's all that stuff together.
It's all of it. But take it all. So it's same with plumbers. You're saying plumbers need to know codes. Codes are great, and you can talk about codes all day in a classroom. But until you see a building in front of you, and you're going, okay, where are we going to put the vent out the side of the house?
Let's say full disclosure here. A lot of these journeyman programs were by design that plumbers didn't want new plumbers coming in, and electricians didn't want new electricians coming in before that time period.
Joe would know that, but and that's why we call them 12-cylinder Enzo.
All right. Well, I think this was good, and we could, again, like always, we could do more on this. And
I want to keep everybody positive, man. Just keep plugging away. Do what you're doing.
Just to those kids that I spoke to last week who came to the trade show, keep going. I was emphasizing it's a great thing. You picked a great trade. You have a potential to make a lot of money. It's all up to your energy level and what you're willing to learn and sacrifice to get out there, because this is a great industry. And they're going to be the kings of the mountain because everybody is retiring.
They're going to write their own check.
They can.
Guys,
learn as much as you can.
Yeah, your dad used to be a physician, right? What did he say? My next life, I want to come back as a plumber.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So these young guys, shop around, find a good company.
Yep.
Get with a good company that's going to educate you and pay you fairly and earn your bones. Get out there and go make a killing.
Please don't interpret this podcast as we're knocking the school.
No,
we're not
at all.
It's up to you. It's just like anything else. It's up to you to get as much out of it as.
I'm knocking the states. I'm not knocking the school. They're a business doing their thing.
Listen, it's up to you.
There's good teachers out there. Take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's up to you to ask the questions and get as much out of everything you can, because you're looking at potential dollars. That's what you're learning, how to make dollars.
I say it as a general thing.
Yes, I mean,
there's great individuals out there.
No, you're right. There's a lot of bad teachers.
My social study teacher was badass.
I had that same one.
Badass? Absolutely not. You know what I mean?
Was my favorite. Just so you know, too. Back in 1978.
All right.
There's ones that stand out. So take advantage of them. They're be a sponge.
All right, that's pretty much it for this week. So, all right, join us again next week when Anonymous Joe tells us about the time he came back from vacation, from a Jamaican vacation, actually, that was. He was wearing a dreadlock wig and started a steel drum marching band in his neighborhood.
A steel drum marching band
in his neighborhood.
Yep.
Yeah,
in Jamaica or back in the States?
Was this ad-libbed or you actually wrote this?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, join us again next week. Glad you're here. Spend some time with us. Find us on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. And have a good week.
My wife has 12 jobs.
Don't listen to Jack.
Remember that?
You guys are jerks.
Follow the HVAC Jerks on Facebook and Instagram.